Hello Boundless Provers. Today we're going to walk through the Boundless Prover playbook. Now before I get started, please make sure that you have run through the quick start. It's linked here at the top, quick start guide. On the quick start, there is a video walkthrough just like this one. So please feel free to watch that, get everything up and running. Now that you've got your prover up and running, connected to base mainnet, you want to get some orders. But you've been watching the logs and you can't seem to lock in time. You are seeing a lot of orders not go through, and you're checking your prover page on the Explorer, and you're not really seeing any orders against your prover's address. Now, I will preface this by saying that we do not give out broker strategies, but what I can do is teach you exactly what you can configure, what you can tune, and what you can set on your broker to resolve some issues that you've been seeing with your orders. If at any point you find yourself lost in terms of terminology like broker or bento or whatever, if you head over to the docs and you go in the for prover section, you'll see the Boundless proving stack, and that will explain what is bento, what is the broker. To understand what you can actually do in order to improve your prover's performance on both locking and actually proving orders, we need to understand what's actually going on in terms of an auction. Each proof request goes into an auction, right? You may have seen this on the Explorer. You'll see something like this image here. The requester has set a few different parameters. They've set the minimum price, this A, the maximum price, this B. They've set the ramp up period, C. They've set the lock timeout, D, and expiry period, E. They also set some other parameters like how much USDC the prover has to stake in order to lock the order. The order was pretty much locked, I don't know, at the beginning of the auction, and it was fulfilled a third of the way, maybe closer to half of the way through the ramp up period. So remember, locked means that a prover has locked the order. They are going to be the prover that fulfills the order as long as they do it on time. They've won the auction. And fulfilled means that they have delivered the proof. Now you may be wondering why there's a minimum price, a maximum price. This is what's known as a reverse Dutch auction. Effectively, what is happening is that the auction starts at a minimum price and it goes up to a maximum price over that ramp up period time. Proving software like the broker will watch proof requests that are available in the market to lock. Based on their preferences, will send a lock transaction when their price that they've set is good enough. So that's the M cycle price, which we'll get onto in a second. Right now, with an oversupply of provers, lots of you are very interested and we love the interest and we're really excited to see you all. The price has shot down in classic economics with supply and demand. The orders are ramping up in the sense of proof requests, but there are still many more provers who want to prove than there are orders to prove. This will resolve itself with time as the market matures, but here right now, as of time of recording, the price is effectively zero for the M cycle price. This will not be forever. The price will go to reasonable prices, especially in a market that is more mature and people are actually generating proofs, spending money to run those provers, and they need to cover costs and everything like that. All right, so we've walked through the reverse Dutch auction. It starts at a minimum price, it goes to a maximum price through this ramp-up period, and your prover will try and send a lock transaction. Now, before it sends a lock transaction, it has to actually figure out a couple of things. Since provers have to stake USDC before being able to lock a proof request, they are incentivized to bid only on proof requests they are sure they can fulfill within the expiry period. Otherwise, they lose their stake. So when the broker or your proving software spots an unlocked request, it must quickly download the guest program, where the bandwidth here is a bottleneck, so how quick your internet speed is to your prover. And after it's downloaded the guest program, it needs to execute what's known as a pre-flight to count the number of cycles in that proof. This step is CPU bound, so only depends on your CPU speed because it's an execution of the guest program. The proving part is what uses your GPUs. So I've seen a lot of questions like, hey, I've run the quick start, I'm looking at my GPU percentages, like in NVIDIA SMI, and I'm seeing that my GPU is not being used. What gives? Well, the GPU is not used until you actually lock an order. Before you lock an order, it's the CPU doing a pre-flight, checking everything is valid, that there'll be a valid proof, the guest program executes as it should, and also giving your prover an idea of whether or not you can actually prove this within the given expiry period. So this is a really important part to keep in mind, that the default settings are not going to work for your machine because you'll need to tell the broker exactly what your peak prove kilohertz is. We'll get onto that in a second. Effectively, this is telling the broker how fast your graphics setup is. The faster it is, the higher the number. What this means is the broker can be more sure of locking larger orders when it does its calculations based on, hey, I've got 20 minutes to go and it's going to take me, based on the number you gave me, 15 minutes to generate proof. Maybe I'll be all right with that. So now I know that your proving software, the broker, has to download a guest program for any unlocked request and pre-flight it. This, by the way, is for everybody, both the requester and the prover. So the prover doesn't spend their time using their GPUs for something they actually can't fulfill. And it matches the requester with a prover who can actually fulfill the request within their required latency time. Now you understand that there's an auction, a minimum price, a maximum price. You send a lock transaction. Before you send the lock transaction, you actually need to have a look at the guest program, actually execute it, and figure out how long would it take on my machine to be able to prove it, and will that fit within the expiry period. To do all that, you're going to need to benchmark your machine and tell your broker.toml file exactly what your peak prove kilohertz is. That's a lot of big words, so to actually put that in simpler terms, we can have a look at this next section in the blog, which is estimating your peak throughput. So the first setting in broker.toml, which by the way, if you do not know how to access that, it's all explained in the quick start. It is in the Boundless monorepo at the top level. You just use your text editor of choice, for example, Vim or something if you're SSH'd into a machine. The first important thing we need to do is set the peak prove kilohertz is here. Peak prove _kilohertz. Now what this means is the total peak proving power in kilohertz of your prover. If a prover can prove 1 kilohertz, it will be able to prove 1000 cycles a second. 1000 kilohertz means 1 million cycles a second. You might be wondering, where do I actually get this number from? Thankfully, the Boundless CLI provides a proving benchmark command. You'll need to pull a request ID from the Explorer, which you can do by heading over to the Explorer and pulling up copy and pasting this ID. And once you're ready with that, you can go and type Boundless proving benchmark, use your RPC URL and your request ID and put the request ID afterwards. And you'll see something like this. Here, I've run it on a single, I think, RTX A4000 card, and we see a peak proof kilohertz of 346. Now, please do read everything that comes up here. You'll see a note here at the bottom that setting a lower value does not limit the prover speed. Don't worry, you're not setting like a speed limit for your proving. You're just telling the broker what orders are reasonable or not, right? And this way, you should lock orders that you can actually fulfill and not get slashed when you lock those orders and not fulfill them. For example, here, with 346, I would recommend setting it at 300, maybe even 280, and seeing how the prover does. Are orders being locked? Once they're locked, am I being slashed? Or am I fulfilling? Am I fulfilling very close to the end? Start low, bump it up with time as you mature in your proving setup. All right, next. So if you remember the M cycle price I already mentioned, it's the price of proving 1 million cycles. So this is the price that you set as a prover that you want to be paid for a single mega cycle, million cycles. If you look at the Explorer right now, you'll see the price. I mean, it's gone back up, but if you see the units here, it's 10 to the minus 12, and I think we're at 10 to the minus 10, which is, well, 1 to the minus 10, which is a very low number, so it's effectively 0. This will increase with time, so please bear that in mind, and you will be paying for it, as in, if you set a really low price, requesters get really cheap proofs. That might cost you more to run your prover than you're getting in fees from the requesters. Now, these are just a certain selection of parameters to tune. We have the lock-in priority gas, we have the minimum deadline, the max stake, the max file size. And remember, these are just a few. There's actually quite a few more in the broker.toml file. So please go ahead and check out that file, read it. If you want to just take a look at the broker.toml file in your browser, you can head over to the Boundless monorepo and click broker-template.toml. And in here, you'll see lots of different things available to you, right? So you see here, we have peak proof kilohertz here. Heading back to the article, so we have lock-in priority gas. So this is extra gas appended to the lock transaction. So remember, that's the transaction when you're like, hey, this price is good. I'm going to go ahead and try and lock it before anyone else takes the price, right? The larger this number is, the more gas you will spend, and you'll push your transaction to the front of the mempool. But remember, this is going to cost you more money, so you're going to burn through native token every lock and every attempt at a lock, right? So you could send a transaction and it not actually lock, right? Which is the case right now with such high competition. So bear that in mind. You'll have to keep your account topped up. Next up, we have minimum deadline. The minimum deadline is the minimum number of blocks before expiry at which the broker will still lock a request. So setting it lower lets you capture jobs that other provers maybe deem too close to the deadline. But of course, there's a trade-off. The slash risk will spike if your proof overruns. Next up, we have the max stake. This is the hard cap on the USDC that you are willing to stake for any single request. So for example, if an order says you need to stake 5 USDC and you've got a max stake of 3, the broker won't go ahead and try and lock that. It will look for a different proof request to lock. And finally, max file size. This is important, especially you can test the internet connection to your prover node. This is basically the upper limit for guest programs that the broker will download. So some guest programs are really large. So for example, with the Signal, they are are very large proofs and you require very high bandwidth and very high amounts of graphics cards in order to prove those, large GPU power. And so you can follow the instructions here to get an idea of your max file size that's going to work for you and your connection to your node. Remember, all these parameters are going to be a trial and error. You're going to tune something, and thankfully there's a hot reload function, so as long as you tune something, it will basically update that for the new proof requests coming through, so you don't need to restart your broker or anything. You'll see with improvements like, hey, maybe I'm getting closer to locking order, or maybe I've locked an order, right? With, what did I change last, right? So you're going to take a scientific approach to this to get things done, which is always a good way of doing things when it comes to life. There's no best value for any of these or any of the ones in this list either, right? Like there are many, there's no best value. It is very, very specific to your CPU, your GPU setup, how much internet speed or internet bandwidth you have, and the market right now, right? So for example, the market right now is proving very cheaply a very low megacycle price the provers are setting in order to try and compete. But this isn't going to be the case forever. I hope you understood a little bit better what's going on. Always remember that if you have any questions for technical support, please head over to the Discord. You can find a link on docs.boundless.xyz. It's in the top right corner. Make sure you grab the prover role from guild.xyz. That will allow you to chat in the prover section in the Discord. You can ask questions, you can post in the support forum. Thanks for listening, and I hope to see you next time.